We're back for more league racing action here today as we are at Monza for the Italian Grand Prix in WOR, round number 8 of the season, and more or less around the halfway stage of the season. Now, if you haven't seen the previous episode, go check it out, guys. Link in the top right. Before we jump into any kind of big spoilers here in this race, but yeah, currently you join me in qualifying, and as you can see on screen, we have a very unique weather forecast scenario where the race icon is heavy rain, yet when you hover over the forecast, there's not a single percentage in terms of rainfall on track, and every single icon is sunshine. So I don't know what to expect for the race. As for qualifying, it's dry. So leave a like if you're going to enjoy it, subscribe for more, and let's get this show on the road. So here we are, starting our first timed lap, our first banker lap in qualifying. Now, I went out a bit late because I was waiting to see what that forecast was going to say. That is going to mean we're going to get 3 runs in instead of 4, which would have been ideal. Down to turn 1 though, we absolutely nailed the braking in 4th gear through the right and the left. Decent traction as well, and we make our way down through turn 3 into turns 4 and 5. Very tricky left-right chicane. It is possible to cut the inside curb at 4, but it's a complete lottery, so I'm going to choose to stay off it and try to play things safe. Getting the drive on the exit, using all the curb as we now head into the Lesmos. First one, getting a late apex, getting the exit, which was really nice. Lesmo 2 down 2 gears. Could have taken a little bit more inside curb, but overall a very tidy second sector. Now, next is going to be Ascari. The Ferrari ahead isn't going to get out of the way, so hopefully he doesn't get in our way through here as we chuck the car in. A little bit safe, could have attacked the inside curb a bit more on the first apex, and eventually you'll see the Ferrari here runs out of fuel. That's Jeffrey Ritchie, so we do get a slight tow thanks to that. Down into the parabolic at the final corner, as you can see, just trying to not run too wide and then keep the car nice and tight on the exit, and overall no real mistakes, and our first banker is a 19.0, which is excellent because my personal best, I believe, is a 18.9. So the fact that I'm a 19.0 on my first lap is a really, really strong banker. You can see now later on with 8.5 minutes to go, we're on our second run, and we're currently P6. So we've dropped down the order, but we're still pretty competitive here in this 18 car grid, I believe. Here we go though, making our way for our second push lap. Let's see if we can find a bit of time in small areas. Our teammate moves out of the way, down to turn 1, braking bang on the 100, down to 4th gear. Try to hit the brakes hard and then release the brake into the corner. Important to keep a little bit of throttle on, especially through turn 2, to maintain the minimum speed high. And that will also allow you to traction up quicker and less wheel spin out of turn 2. Flat out through 3, and we're half a tenth up into the 4-5 chicane. Again, avoiding the inside curb, focusing on the exit, and we find a bit more time as we now head into the Lesmos. Lesmo 1, a little bit wide of the apex, but still improving, and we're nearly a tenth and a half up. Lesmo 2, we find even more time, but we have a bit of a moment on the exit. Otherwise, we would have been up by about a tenth and a half, so we have dropped, I'd say, a potential tenth of a second on this straight as we go purple. Into Ascari though, 6th gear this time, a gear higher than before, carrying a lot more speed, much more commitment through there, and we're once again over a tenth up. Now then, the final corner, brake at the 50, turn in 5th gear, and then shift to 6th straight away, try and keep it nice and tight for the shortest run to the line, and it's going to be an improvement. It's a 1:18.956, and we move into the top 5 with that lap, and we know there's a bit more time in it on the back straight, so we're looking at potentially, I'd say, a mid to high 0.8 on a perfect lap. So my final attempt, I went out a little bit earlier to avoid traffic and not have any issues with getting round in time or potentially never starting the lap. So we're going to try again. Into the first chicane, we do outbrake ourselves a little bit this time around, and that's going to compromise the line, and we actually lose time because of it, as I couldn't really get the exit right. So outbraking myself automatically has a massive knock-on effect throughout this entire sequence. I'm now 10th down. I tried to recover the time, so I'm going to take a risk and cut turn 4, but you can see the car did not respond accordingly as we bounced over the curb, and it kind of responded in not the way I wanted it to. So yeah, unfortunately, not ideal. We can see through Lesmo 2, we was 4 tenths down, and we're going to recover pretty much a full tenth on the delta. So that's kind of the lap time that we left on the table here. Into Ascari, I'm just giving it everything at this point to try and make lap time up, but unfortunately overdriving means we spin, lose the car. We keep it out of the wall, but that is it. 2 minutes to go. We're not getting back. Qualifying done, and that is it for us. So here we have the final results, and it's going to be Bulenferrer on pole once again. Jeffrey Ritchie close behind, also Thomas Harvey and Sergio Sobrino in the mix. Then there's a tenth of a second gap to Leroy Brown in P5, and I think realistically that's the best we could have hoped for in this qualifying. I think P5 ahead of Leroy would have been the ideal lap had we got that 10th in Lesmo 2 along the back straight. So yeah, potential P5, P6 thrown down the toilet. Still though, both cars in the top 8 again. Our qualifyings haven't been too shabby lately, to be fair. The grid is extremely competitive. Things are tight, and yeah, overall I'm happy. You know, P8 gets us in the race. Now the big question is the weather forecast. What the hell is going to happen? So let's get into the race and let's find out. Race time, and my God, it's absolutely chucking it down. Heavy rain the entire race. 27 laps of monsoon rain. So we're going to go ahead, as Park for May is off, we're going to change our setup a little bit for wet conditions. I don't want to give up the straight line speed because that's going to make me very hard to be overtaken. So I do want to kind of, you know, keep that if I can. So we're going to go 2-2 on the wing. We're going to make some adjustments to tyre pressures by pushing them up. The higher pressures you run, the more at risk you are to overheating. But if you can manage it, you're going to have much better tyre wear. So you can see me here actually deciding to go a little bit hard on the rears, as you're going to probably suffer more rear tyre wear realistically because of the traction zones out of turn 2, out of turn 5. So yeah, either way, just making some final tweaks there, considering my options. I'm also going to go ahead and change the fuel, as usually in wet races, you can underfuel quite a lot. Now, because I don't want to take the risk, I'm actually just going to go 0.2 over. So still a little bit on the safe side, but still. Anyway, it's time for the action. Full wet tyres, lots of rain, and we're underway in Monza. Off the line, and we nail Marcus Towler straight away with the traction as we jump straight away into P7. Now to turn 1, we're going to go down the inside here and look at potentially making a move on left as Marcus runs it in super hot into turn 1. We've got the space, and we're going to try it and edge this out in a traction battle. I think there's a car on the left, possibly, not quite sure. Either way, left did with a bit of an issue under the traction, and we're up into P7. So a place gained.
Radar suggests that this heavy rain will be with us for a while now. Full wet seem like the best tyre for now.
In the meantime, into turn 4, you can see left had actually re-challenged, partly because Javier Fernandez was also challenging him. At this point, everybody is scrambling for, you know, grip, trying to understand what the track conditions are. Everybody at this point has put on their own interpretation of a wet setup, so I reckon the dry setups were a lot more similar. In the wet, they're going to be a lot more all over the place, and there might even be those who have forgotten to put a wet setup on. So, yeah, 19 cars in this group, but P7 right now, things are looking pretty decent, and I'm sure there's more chaos to come. And Sabrino gets out of shape, and so do we on the exit. However, we managed to keep the momentum rolling, and we're going to use up the battery and have a look here into Parabolica up the inside of the Williams. I completely misjudged my braking point, as I just had no idea where to brake. I was trying to commit, I overcommitted, outbroke myself, and now Harvey Cohen is going to go by, and he's a bit of a weather specialist, to be fair, so he's going to be one to watch out for. Also Javier Fernandez looking for the pass here. I get boxed in, so I can't really do much about this. As we head down to turn 1, I'm going to try and hold around the outside as Leroy has to cut the chicane and another car off up ahead. But Fernandez does get the better line and gets ahead. We then re-overtake Leroy on the exit as he tried to avoid getting a penalty, but unfortunately still got one, which was a little bit harsh from the game, to be fair. But anyway, now we're going to go about trying to get past Javier Fernandez here and try to get back past, because at the minute, if you consider, you know, the places we lost, we should be in the top 5 at the moment. So I want to try and get back to work. And actually, Fernandez there moving across, completely blocking the inside, and actually Daniel Kedzin going for A bit of a late dive. I left the door open for him to go for it. And now up ahead, Willem Ferrer out in the gravel, I think, after contact. So we lose the place, but gain one back again. But it's frustrating because we should be in P5, P4 right now, but you know, it hasn't worked out for us. Combination of mistakes and also just bad luck, you know, with choosing racing lines. Either way, Leroy behind us, so P8, P9, and I'm struggling for grip at this point, and I do think I was running a bit less wing than others around me. It meant that my straight line speed was really good. Also, our ERS recharge is going to be better and more effective than other cars around us, but we're going to struggle a bit more in traction and also tyre wear and making it work in sector 2. So anyway, on to lap number 3 then. Normally the ERS would be enabled at this point, but of course it's a wet race, so we're not going to have that advantage. Leroy was pressuring me, and I could already tell he had a bit more pace than me at this stage. I think he was running higher wings, and especially on a full tank, that's going to be a big advantage. Up ahead, I think that's Marcus Towler, who ran off the track. I think he's ahead of us. I'm not 100% certain. I think he also has a penalty for cutting the first chicane, as he was behind us on lap 1. Either way, the action continues, and it's just happening all the time. You see another car off at the chicane. This time I think that was a Ferrari in the distance. In the meantime, we have a bit of a gap starting to form. So behind Leroy, 1.5 seconds to lefted. So a bit of a breakaway here as we're starting to pull away. You can see I'm still really struggling for grip, and at this point I thought I'd keep on pushing, but then I quickly realised as I turned the battery off, I'll just let Leroy go. We're teammates, I'm not going to waste time battling. He's got a penalty, so let's see what he can do, and maybe he might give us a chance to fight back through. So yeah, let's see what Leroy can do. I'm going to do my thing. I was trying to mess around with the diff, you know, using 50, 55, trying to find the right balance and something that would work for me in these conditions. Up ahead, Fernandez and Kedzen battling away in front, and actually Fernandez loses it into the wall with wing damage. Luckily the pit lane's right there, but that is going to gain us a place. And yet again, another lap where we gain a place and then lose one. Marcus Towler disconnects, although he did have 13 seconds worth of penalties. So in the blink of an eye, we're P7, and it could have been P4 or P3 right now had we not lost so many places, but it is what it is. We are a bit off the pace at this stage, you know, with the full tank. So with that said, after 4 full racing laps with no interruptions, we now skip to lap 5 as the race started to calm down and settle into its kind of natural pace. And we had a massive moment here out of the final corner. I was trying to straight line the exit, but I got onto the curb and there was a bit of a bump in the road and we almost stacked it. Luckily we managed to keep the car pointing in the right direction. Gap ahead 1.2, started to lose a bit of time. Luckily though I was under no pressure from behind. I was comfortably quicker than the cars behind, so kind of running in my own little bubble here. In the meantime, Leroy getting past Daniel Kedzen, and I wanted a piece of that action. So we actually get an excellent exit and some nice traction out of turn 2. And I know my straight line speed is good, so we're going to use the battery here to get the run on the McLaren. Down to turn 4, side by side, on the brakes. We match him, we're side by side, but we get left no room to go on the outside there, so I have to back out and, you know, try again another day for that move. I think ideally I would like a bit more space, but it is what it is. I thought I was dead alongside into the corner, under braking. Either way, personal best now on lap 9, and Daniel makes a mistake. He has to cut across the chicane. Doesn't get a penalty. Okay, he does get a penalty. There you go, 3 seconds. I thought we gained a bit of time as well because I should have been a bit closer here to get a run. Instead, he decides to use a load of battery to stay in front, so we have to just wait and be patient. At this point, I was starting to consider strategy. So if you look at the tyre wear, we're not going to make it to the end. So the no stopper is off the table. That's not going to be an option for us here today. So at this point, we're starting to think of options as Harvey Cohen starts to fall back. I think he has some screen freezes. I have one of my own in the recording here. This was fine for me during the race, but it's just on playback for some reason. Sometimes my recordings do this. But you can see my tyre wear in the bottom right. We're starting to struggle. We're pushing the 40s, and it's looking like we're going to have to stop.
We're going to give you full wets in the next pit window, opening in 2 laps. Full wets in 2 laps time.
So there's the update from Elvis as we set a personal best. So yeah, we're going to be looking to hopefully box. Now the question is, when do we box? Do we drag these tyres out and have fresher tyres at the end, or do we box early? Now then, on that last lap, Lefty behind has actually pit, so in a way the undercut is going to force my hand and we're going to try and cover him off. So we're going to box as well now at the end of lap 11. This is also an undercut attempt on the car's head. The reason being is because overtaking was pretty much impossible for me. The pace just wasn't enough. And also, just generally, everybody was trying to make moves, and unless you made a mistake, an overtake was pretty hard to pull off. So we're going to try and go for the undercut. Surprised not more cars went for it. We're going to be neck and neck here with Thomas Harvey. We've actually gained a little bit because Thomas was running, I think, in P2 or P3. And in this pit sequence,
Up to speed now, let's get some heat into those tyres.
we've actually gained a fair bit as we have his teammate Taz racing to turn 1. This is race critical that we stay ahead, and that's exactly what we do. Into turn 1, we send it on the inside and manage to stay in front of him. And also Lefty, you can see behind in the Haas, has not managed to undercut us. So the gap to Thomas Harvey right now, 7/10, and he was running P3. So this is looking good for us as more cars start to pit. We're right on the money here. We've got a few more in the pit lane, so we'll move up the order here into P12. And basically me and Thomas are going flat out, going for an undercut attempt. And unfortunately, I'll make my first big mistake of the race. I completely outbrake myself. I behaved myself very well, not cutting too much and actually trying to pull the car back onto the racing line, thus losing 2 seconds and not getting a penalty. So that's kind of the trade-off. I decided to, take time hit but not get a penalty. So yeah, either way, on to lap 14 now. More cars are in the pit lane, and unfortunately the mistake was costly because Leroy Brown, my teammate, you can see is ahead. He's going to rejoin just behind Thomas Harvey. So it would have been really close between me and Leroy, with the pit stop phase. Either way, more cars in the pits. Those guys are still battling up ahead. Purple sector 3 from us as we get ahead of Jeffrey Ritchie, who has now pit. And at this point, you see our tyres, we're looking at about 10 to 15% on tyre wear. And that is going to be a disadvantage, later on in the race when we're fighting with tyre wear. Others are going to be in better shape than us. Lap 15, nothing really happening at this stage. I was just running my own race, decent pace. Daniel Kied's in pits. He tried to gamble on intermediates, but there was no change in the weather, and that is going to completely backfire on him. And the intermediate is definitely a tyre you do not want to be on in the race because it's still full wet tyres. So, that there's no sign of overheating on the rubber, which is usually the telltale sign when it's time to go for intermediates. So yeah, Daniel making a critical mistake, and that's also going to cost the cars behind some time, which allows me to open up a bit of a gap, which I was very happy about. We've got Brulin Ferrer in the pit lane, of course, who had that instant lap 1. So that is us now into P5. So the undercut has been relatively successful, even with the mistake. We're into the top 5 now, so I don't know exactly who we've overtaken or who we've passed, but it's worked out, and we're in the top 5 right now. And worth noting, actually, Harvey Cohen, who wasn't the Red Bull who overtook us earlier on, he is the race leader, and he is not stopping. He's attempting the no stop. You can see on the minimap he's going through turn 3 right now. We'll keep an eye on him and see how he gets on, potentially looking at a puncture. For us though, we've got no chance. Our tyres are wearing out a lot. I'm guessing Harvey ran maximum pressures and managed to deal with the tyre temps, but that's giving him a lot better tyre wear. Either way, action ahead. Sabrino overtaken by Thomas Harvey into turn 1 on this lap. I was hoping for Leroy to get stuck in and hopefully cost them some time. But anyway, we've managed to catch back up, which is the main thing. My pace was good. I've also dragged Jeffrey Ritchie and left it with me. Now Jeffrey did pit about 4 or 5 laps after me and left it, so he's going to have much better tyres. You can see we're pushing 60 plus right now. So it's the last lap of the race. I could also tell Leroy was struggling for pace here at this stage, and I was in 2 minds. Do I go for a move on Leroy? He does have a penalty, so we're going to finish ahead anyway. But Jeffrey was flying. He pulled the pin. He had pace on those fresher tyres, and I was starting to really struggle for pace. You can see here now to Lesmo 2. Jeffrey up the inside. We have a bit of contact. I tried to leave space. I'm trying to traction up on the tarmac rather than the curb, and we actually locked tyres, which indirectly actually helped me out. So we managed to stay in front, thanks to also having plenty of battery to use, which was my ace up my sleeve. I was kind of holding onto that battery in case I needed it, and we're going to have a bit more to deploy here. So this is going to help us just stay in front of the Ferrari and keep P5, and we should be P4 after Leroy's penalty. So in the end, even with a few errors, you know, we kept it clean. We didn't get a single warning this race, unlike, you know, past races. So we kept it very clean, and we're going to finish P4. And yet again, in the rain, we show our pace and get the job done, like in Silverstone. So there you go, job done for us. Happy days, and our second best result of the season. And yet again, a wet race. So it goes to show I've got a bit of pace in these races, and I'm happy overall that things went well. Harvey Cohen, though, managed to make the no-stop work. He finished on around 77% tyre wear. So fair play, GG, he didn't get a puncture, and that's the way it goes sometimes. Obviously, he had a pretty decent wet setup with maximum pressures, or very high pressures anyway, to make the tyre wear last. Further behind, Jeffrey Richard with the fastest lap. Leroy P8 with the penalty. I believe he might get one of them removed, so I think he'll finish in P6, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, overall, guys, that is it for the race. And what could have been, you know, we lost a lot of places on the first stint, and after the pit stops, we was behind Thomas Harvey. So a potential P2, we did lose out on here today, which is a bit of a shame. I think we had the pace for it. My pace was a lot better in the second stint with, you know, once the fuel burned off a bit and the car was a bit lighter, it was a bit better on its tyres as well, and my pace was stronger. So we got stronger as the race went on, that's for sure. Either way, let's look at the standings, and as you can see, we do gain quite a few places thanks to that result. We've had a couple of DNFs, which has been a bit painful. My form is up and down right now. After Silverstone, we've had 2 DNFs, and now we're back in P4. So yeah, it's a bit all over the place, but crucially, we do get, you know, some points on the board, and we go to Spain next, and hopefully we can try and make more progress moving forward. So yeah, guys, there's your lot for this episode here today. Leave a like if you did enjoy it. Subscribe for more if you want to see more of this content. I stream on Twitch sometimes. I haven't been doing so recently. I've been having issues with my Streamlabs OBS and also my Stream Deck, so I do apologize for that. But yeah, as always, guys, a massive shout out to the members. Finally, check out the 2 videos on screen if you haven't seen them already. And yeah, guys, I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, take care, and that's goodbye from me.